podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to AI Scouted Presents Euro 2024. During this competition, myself and Karl Matchett with Guy Drinkle are going to be doing daily podcasts as we did for the World Cup and the previous European Championships. And when the Copa America kicks in, we'll be talking a little bit about that. But these are going to be half-hour pods every day, dropping for you. And I am, of course, joined by Mr. Karl Matchett. How are you, sir?
Very much looking forward to the entirety of the month. I think it should be decent. I'm still very, very against the format, but in general, international tournaments, I love.
I love old international tournaments. I find current international tournaments, particularly the European Championships and the World Cup, too diluted because I think there's just too many teams and thus too many games. For European Championships, I want no more than 16 teams. It's why I'm looking forward to the Copa more than I am to this, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, look, I kind of get the idea of opening it up to more teams in terms of giving more fans experience, more players a bit of experience who otherwise wouldn't do, but it obviously does dilute the quality of it as well. That's something you kind of have to accept if you're going to have more in. My bigger issue than that, just the numbers don't work. I hate this third place best of goes through. Some of them don't. I find it leads to usually negativity. It's just not something that leads itself to really exciting countdown. You're either in or you're not, or you know you've got to be better than the team you're playing against. If suddenly it matters what someone on a different day does, it definitely takes away some of that cutthroat nature, should we say.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously not all groups are created equally. So, for example, today we're going to talk about the first game of the tournament, which is Germany versus Scotland in Group A. And if you look at Group A, it's Germany, Scotland, Hungary, and Switzerland. So that's finishing third in that group is not the same, for example, as finishing third in a group with Spain, Croatia, Italy, and Albania. And let's just say Albania managed to pull off a shock and finish third in their group, but then don't qualify out of that group because they're not one of the best third-place finishers. But let's just say Scotland finished third in Group A. They won't have overcome the same kind of odds. They won't have faced the same level of competition, and yet they could get through over Albania, who've got a much tougher group and a much more steep hill to climb.
Yeah, for sure. It's not a perfect situation at all. I don't think it's one that should have been done without a proper workaround to make a different group stage entirely, whether you go for 2 leagues of 12 or something and try and figure out some other way to do it. But here we are. I guess we just have to make the most of it and enjoy it anyway.
Exactly. So what we're going to do first, before we get to our first game, because we only have one game on Friday, is we are going to go group by group and let's predict the top 2 to qualify from each group. So group winner, group runner-up. We'll leave the third place playoff stuff because that'll just have to figure itself out. But let's start with Group B and we'll come back to Group A at the end and that'll lead us into our conversation about Germany, Scotland. Group B, Karl Matchett, who are the 2 teams that are going to qualify automatically? Spain, Croatia, Italy, and Albania.
So I like Spain more the more I look at them at the moment. I still think there's obviously flaws there and a few things to sort out, but in general, I really like it. I think there's a big question over the third midfielder, as we've spoken of before. If De La Fuente decides to be a bit bold and go 4-2-3-1, especially in some games where they might feel they're evenly matched tactically, I really like the possibilities of someone like Dani Olmo being the difference maker for them. So I'm going to pick them to win the group. Second, I've been backwards and forwards. I will, in the end, go with Croatia on familiarity over quality.
So we already have our first difference. Like you, I think Spain will win this group, but I'm going to pick Italy to come out of it in second place. It wouldn't surprise me at all if the Croatians, if the Italy and Croatia are level in points and both of them get through. But I do feel like with Croatia, there's just so much reliance on old legs And after a long season, I do just think, especially considering some of those that they've been so heavily reliant on over the years, just simply aren't the same caliber of player that they were. And some of them are playing at a lower level. So, for example, Brozovic has always been really important. Like the step up from the Saudi League to this, I think is drastic, whereas previously, obviously, he'd been with Inter. I think that could have an effect. I think they're reliant on players from lesser leagues. You've got a number of players from the Dutch league and their home league. I just think that might play a factor here. And like I say, there are very old legs in this squad that are going to be relied on. And I don't think there's enough quality among the younger players in the group.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm just going to go for them to beat Italy is basically where I am. Like I say, Italy have obviously got probably more quality throughout the squad, but I'm not 100% convinced about the group. I don't think they're necessarily as functional yet as they will need to be to win important games. And obviously in defence, we know they've had a couple of quite notable injuries. I think that might end up being a bit of a difference maker.
Yeah, the defensive injuries could be big, could be very big, because we have a big unknown in terms of who partner Bastoni. Group C then. Slovenia, Denmark, Serbia, and England. I think we'll both agree that England, well, anything less than topping the group will be a big surprise. I'm going to go England and Denmark to come through automatically. What way are you looking at it?
Yeah, they're my two as well. I think England top the group, but I do think Denmark have got enough in them to maybe even get a draw out of that England game, to be honest, because they're so well set up. If England haven't clicked in terms of the attack and movement and speed of play by game 2, which obviously 2 games prior to the Euros, they definitely haven't been. And I could certainly see Denmark getting a draw minimum in that game. But I think England have the quality and determination to beat teams who will try and sort of physically match them up and try and be a bit more aggressive rather than cute. So I expect to win the other 2 games. I will go for England top, Denmark second.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest thing with the Serbian squad, who I think are the second most talented squad in this group, is that we've just seen them not turn up at these international tournaments time and again. And 2 of their best players are in semi-retirement playing in the Saudi League. So, again, like with Brozovic, I do just wonder about that ability for important players like Milinkovic-Savic and Mitrovic to up their game to the required level, because you'd imagine they're just breezing through these games in Saudi Arabia because the standard is in general so poor. Group D, I think this is a very interesting group, but there does seem to be 2 quite clear standout favourites. We've got Poland, Netherlands, Austria, and France. Who do you have coming through?
Probably unsurprising, but I'm going to go for France top. Though I do not, at this point, feel anywhere near as strongly about them as I did, let's say, 6 months ago. I'm going Netherlands second, but I don't think it's a certainty. They have been quite hard done by, to be honest, with an entire midfield and sub basically ruled out by injury. I'm not keen on this Poland side at all. Austria are really well organised and have had good results, but I am still just about going to go with Netherlands to get second.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Dutch lose Frenkie and they lose Ten Koopmeiners, who were the likely starting duo in midfield. But in a way, I wonder if those injuries benefit them, because now a lot will depend on Ronald Koeman. But the fact that Maatsen and Xerxes were not included in the squad to begin with, I found infuriating.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Maatsen in particular, I think, should absolutely have been involved. But Xerxes, I can kind of go either way on him. I'm not 100% sold on him at the top level. And depending on who you want your starting forwards to be, obviously, you then have to make a decision on, do you want a backup for them to be like for like, or do you want a complete alternative? And if your complete alternative is Weghorst, for example, I don't 100% know that I would immediately then go to say Xerxes has to go as well. Maatsen, I'm with you. He should have been in from the very beginning. He should have the fact that he's going to this tournament uncapped is a nonsense. But regardless, I think it's quite difficult for them to say that it's going to be a positive that they're without not just those two that you mentioned in midfield, but also De Bruyne, obviously right before the end of the season.
Yeah.
When down injured, he's going to play no part at all, missed the final as well. It's quite a hard thing to overcome an entire midfield being missing. And that's even before you consider, like, only 18 months ago, David Klassen was still a starter for them. He's now, not been involved at all recently. Quentin Timber, who we spoke about, is injured and wasn't called up for the end of it anyway. So it's a real turnaround. It's an opportunity for some others. That's always going to be the case. But I think it's quite difficult to come back from that and put an entire spine back together.
Yeah, no, I do agree that losing the midfield is a big blow. I wonder if they can put together a bit of a hodgepodge midfield, but if they upgrade other areas, like for me, I understand that you're not sold on Xerxes, and to be quite clear, neither am I. I think there's a lot of talent there, but I do think he flatters to deceive at times. But when I look at the other forward options in this group, and you mentioned Weghorst, and then we look at Brian Brobby.
Yeah, you can absolutely copy and paste the flatter to deceive across 3 of those in that squad.
Exactly, and I'd much rather have Xerxes than the 2 of them. So, again, he might not even see the pitch because, Koeman is Koeman. But I do think this could benefit for the long term with the Dutch team because you're getting Xerxes involved, you're getting Maatsen involved, and whoever takes over from Koeman, whenever that is likely going to want to build around Maatsen and Frimpong as wing backs, Van de Ven, Botman, Xavi Simons, Xerxes, and players of that ilk and that age group. So long term, it might benefit them. Like you, I have France to win the group, and I have the Netherlands coming through in second place. We'll move on to Group E then. It's Belgium, Slovakia, Romania, and Ukraine. And this is another example of not all groups being created equally. Belgium should sail through. The question is who finishes in second place. I probably lean towards Ukraine, but I don't really feel strongly about any of these 3 teams.
Yeah, I feel like if there was a good team, not even a great team, a good team in this group, let's say instead of Slovakia, I probably wouldn't be going with Belgium to top the group, to be honest.
Yeah, fair.
I'll go with Ukraine because I think they've got better players, simple as that. The Slovakia squad is pretty set. They've got a lot of players there who are sort of between 30 and 100 caps, like it's one which has kind of been together for a long time. Not lots and lots of quality, not lots and lots of top level where those players are playing with 2-3 exceptions like Lobotka. I can't back them to win. I can see them like getting 2 draws and a defeat and going out or something like that. And in theory, you could say, well, they were close, but they just won't be. I'll go for Ukraine. They've got the capacity to win 2 games there.
Yeah, I feel the same. And would you be hugely surprised if Ukraine got a draw against Belgium, won the other 2 games, and them and Belgium went through on even points? Because I don't think I would be personally.
No, I wouldn't, and especially because that's the final game of the group. So if they do both win the first 2 matches and then rotate for the final group game, then of course, yeah, even more chance of that happening. So I think player for player, Belgium should be better than Ukraine, but Belgium's team isn't good, and Ukraine, aside from the fact that it's obvious they have something else to play for, they have been a real team even prior to that. So I would go with Belgium 1, Ukraine 2, but not with massive conviction.
Yeah, I feel the same. Right, Group F then, the final group, is Turkey, Georgia, Portugal, and the Czech Republic. And I think we're both in agreement that Portugal should breeze this group. But I do look at the battle for second, and I find myself wondering, could Georgia do it? Because we've seen Turkey underperform before.
Yeah,
I think they definitely have the most talent, and like if you're looking long term at any of these countries, I think the Turks have reason to be very, very optimistic about the future of their national team. When you look at elite young talents like Kenan Yildiz, of Juventus, and obviously Arda Güler of Real Madrid. But there's a lot of players in that group who have incredible variance in their performance. Like, take the defence, for example. Merry Demiral, one week you watch him, he looks absolutely world-class. The next week you watch him, and he looks like football is completely new to him. He's obviously another one that's moved on to the Saudi Pro League. There's others in that group. Mert Mulder is another one that can look great some weeks and really, really shaky the next. In the midfield group, Ergen Koku was tremendous at Feyenoord, went to Benfica, had a very, very poor season. He's not coming in form. Çalhanoğlu is a player that he's vital to them. He's their captain. He's their lead playmaker. He takes their set pieces. But he's had a very long, arduous season with Inter. Now, he's performing at a very high level. He's coming in good form. But that doesn't necessarily translate to European Championships or World Cups, any of these tournaments in general. And I do just wonder, could they get in their own way? Again, like another good player, Salioskin, who's coming off a really bad season with Borussia Dortmund, but he's going to be important to the national team. I just think there's a lot of variance with this team. They could go toe-to-toe with Portugal if things go right for them, or I could see them finishing third and Georgia sneaking in if Kvaratskhelia catches fire and just, does what he does.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, here the big factor is that it's going to be first game, isn't it? So it's who is ready. Like Turkey v Georgia, I think, is a decisive one for Georgia. Like, if they play reasonably well, whether they get a draw or even if they lose, let's say, I think that is the one which gives them confidence, because they have to be looking at those first two games and knowing they've got to win one of them. I think this Georgia team is good enough to win one. I don't really rate the Czech Republic side, but they may put together a team performance and obviously cause some sort of surprise or upset along the way. Turkey are the better team, but I do believe that this Georgia side has enough about them to either beat them or beat Czech Republic. I see Georgia going through one way or another. I think they can do enough across the group.
Yeah, and I mean, look, these type of tournaments, especially with the expanded format, but even before the expanded format, there is always that one country that nobody expects to do all that well. And I'm sure if you look at the odds, Georgia are probably favoured to finish bottom of the group. But there's always one country that overperforms and really surprises people at an international tournament. I do wonder if this time around, like it was Morocco with the World Cup, for example. I do wonder if this is the Czech Republic 96, not getting to the final, but overachieving, Bulgaria and Sweden at the 94 World Cup. Can Georgia be that team? And I really hope they can, because it'd be a great story.
Yeah, I think they can. And obviously there's going to be a lot of eyes and emphasis on creature from opposition players as well. I think that simply means that there's going to be a lot of space, a lot of opportunity for George Mikatadze. Spoken about it before. I think he's the one. If he fires, if they give him service, Georgia are going to go through.
Yeah. And look, I would really like to see the Turks do well, because there's an awful lot of players in this squad that I'm very, very much a fan of. I've mentioned most of them. The likes of Koku, the like of Özkan, the two young boys, Güler and Yildiz. I think these are all sensational players in their own rights, but I do just worry that they have a habit of not performing in international tournaments. So who are you picking to go through second?
I'll go Turkey, but I'm still going to say now Georgia go through.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you there. Right, Karl Matchett, before we go to Group A, quick trivia question for you. What is the only international team in the Euros who do not have a single player currently plying their trade in English football?
In English football?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
There's only one.
That is a good question. Is it Albania?
Nope.
My only other guess that I will make then is going to be Romania.
Albania have Armando Broja and Thomas Strakosha. Romania have one, that is Radu Dragosin, Tottenham. the only country at these European Championships with no player playing at any level in English football is Slovenia.
Oh.
So that might be one to get a few people around the office if you wanted to test them on their knowledge. Right, Carl. Group A.
Right.
It's Germany, it's Scotland, it's Hungary, and it's Switzerland. I am going out on a limb. I'm picking Germany to win, but I'm picking Hungary to finish second.
Okay. Germany to win, I think. Yes, I think Germany are going to be at 9 points from 9, along with Portugal. I'm going Switzerland to finish second. I really like the Swiss setup, and they always get to the last 16, but I think they're actually good for an upset in the 16s. So I'm going Switzerland second.
Karl Matchett celebrating the Haris Seferovic international exile.
Along with all the Swiss.
Right, we have Germany versus Scotland. It's an 8 p.m. kickoff. It's the first game. It will be played at what is being called the Football Arena München, which is obviously the Alliance Arena in Munich, one of the most incredible stadiums on the continent. It is a very fitting venue for our first game. Obviously, the hosts traditionally do play in the first game. Scotland will fancy themselves to give the Germans a really tough game. And I'm sure they'll be, very physical, very well organised, very diligent. But we've discussed before, there's a lack of goals in the squad. The top two scorers are John McGinn and Scott McTominay, which is never ideal. Stuart Armstrong and Ryan Christie are also among the top goal scorers with 6 and 5. They're both midfielders, obviously, as well. The only strikers, or forward players, I should say, who've really contributed anything at the international level are Che Adams, who has 6 goals in 30 games, and James Forrest with 5 in 39, and I would imagine he's unlikely to be a starter. How do you see this game going?
In pretty obvious fashion, I think Germany dominating large spells of possession, Scotland having to stay really, really tight. Well, we got 3 minutes left on the time. It feels simplistic to say like Scotland will have to rely on counterattacks and set pieces, but literally I think that's what this game will be. First game of the tournament, you're against the host. Literally everything is against you, including your own build-up, because they've had injury withdrawals and problems and all the rest of it. I think this is going to be a little bit of a game to just try and settle themselves into the tournament. And if they lose, let's say 2-0, I think they'll take that as an average, which doesn't set them up well or anything of the sort, but they will take just to not be out the running for third straight away. They haven't been, absolutely bruised in terms of confidence and all the rest of it.
Mm.
I think from a Scotland perspective, obviously from the start you'll go for getting something from the game, but if you cannot, you accept that it's circumstantial. Your hosts, their ground, their players, their fans, all the rest of it, and you accept that, and you take the experience of opening the tournament and actually being at a second tournament in a row, and those are positive things. You take that into Switzerland, that's where you need to be better. For Germany, it's the complete opposite. I don't think there's going to be such enormous pressure on them like you sometimes say that there is on the hosts, just because I think everything's been so positive for them over the last 6 months compared to the 12 months before that. They do look really, really settled. They do look like, especially at that line of 3 behind forward, they've got the players they want in the form that they want. I think they've got a massive opportunity, and hopefully it'll just be a really, really good occasion to get the whole thing started as well.
Yeah, with a bit of luck. I mean, you mentioned the exclusions, the players that had to drop out with injuries. Obviously, the Germans announced the other day that Alexander Pavlovic is going to miss out due to an illness. Emre Can has been called up. Emre's coming off a pretty good year where he led Borussia Dortmund to a European Cup final. The Scots, they lost Lyndon Dykes and Ben Doak. Called up Tommy Conway to replace Ben Doak, and well, people might not want to hear it. That actually helps the Scots, because right now, in 2024, there's absolutely no question that Tommy Conway is a significantly better footballer than Ben Doak. Lewis Morgan of the New York Red Bulls was called up to replace Dykes. I'm with you. I mean, I think there's a lot to like about this German squad. I think a lot depends on what the centre-back pairing works out as, because I'm not a big Jonathan Tah fan at all, and if he's starting, I would have concerns. I think Rudiger and Schlotterbeck could be really, really promising, with Kimmich and Rom as the flanking fullbacks, and then maybe it's Gundogan and Cruz, which gives you incredible control in midfield, and then ahead of them you've got Wirtz, you've got Musiala. I assume we'll see Kai Havertz as the 9, but I'm very much hoping that there are occasions where Max Bayer plays with Musiala and Wirtz behind, because I think that could be really, really fun. And then obviously there's, the Leroy Sané wild card. What form is he going to be in? Because you just don't know anymore. He's not the player he was before the ACL injury. But I think the Germans are well set up. I'm fairly confident that they're going to be thereabouts in this competition. I think they've got one of the 2 best managers in the competition, which I think will play a bigger factor in the knockout phases. I think talent alone will see them 9 out of 9 in the group. So give me a score prediction for Germany versus Scotland, and we will leave it there.
I am going to go with a 2-0, fairly standard. I don't necessarily think they're going to go all out for a thrashing. So 2-0, everyone is maybe not necessarily happy, but okay.
I'll go 3-1 Germany. I think that I could see them going 2-0 up. Maybe the Scots pull one back and then go chasing an equaliser and just leave themselves a little bit open, and the Germans catch them and finish it off. But yeah, I think it should be a good game. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's a great way to start the competition. And here's to a month of hopefully good football, enjoyment, upsets, shocks, new players emerging, and with a bit of luck, a team coming from nowhere to upset everybody and, reach maybe even the last 8 when nobody's given them a prayer. We will be back each and every day. Some days, most days it'll be myself and Carl. Some days it'll be me and Guy. Some it'll be Carl and Guy. But we will have content for you every day through these European Championships. And as I said at the start, when the Copa America kicks in, we'll also maybe just give a nod to it, but not in as much detail as we're looking at this, because obviously this is more close to home for us all. Carl, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Sports Social Podcast Network.